are you, Andreas?
Good, thanks. You?
Yeah, I'm very well. I'm very well. I'm very happy to see you here, Andreas, because I can tell you first, I'm very grateful to the trust that you gave us 5 years ago when we trusted with the limited edition, when we started with the limited edition. The limited edition was only a dream to support independent watchmaking. And we came much later to where you started, of course, several years ago, when you, of course, understood and got passionate about watchmaking as a form of art more than anything else. So I'm really happy to have you here, and I hope everything is okay with you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the invitation.
Great. Are you? Yeah.
Yeah. I started 25 years ago. So last year it was my 25 years anniversary of my workshop.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm still working.
Absolutely, absolutely. Do you feel different? So I have two questions. Is Andreas Strehler different today than when you started in terms of the art that you're trying to propose? And is the watchmaking world different?
Everything changes all the time. So sure, at the beginning I was I was a rookie. I had the idea. It's like you can read it in the magazines. You launch a product with a lot of innovations and so on, and you will be famous immediately. And after my first exhibition in Basel, I found out it's absolutely not the case. So it's not only making something, but you have to advertise, you have to promote, you have to show yourself, and people have to know you. You can't sell from zero. So
that was 1998 when you went to Basel with one of your, still today, you will agree, one of your absolute masterpieces, which was obviously the Teach Calendar.
Yes, it is still one of my most important pieces. Yes, that is. It's highly complex. It's a connected watch with a calendar. It's similar to a sympathetic of Abraham Louis Breguet, and only a few did similar systems. But this is the only one which has a mechanical memory, which transmits mechanically from the watch to the calendar the numbers of days to change. Normal sympathetic just synchronize two identical indications like time. So the watch has time and the desk clock has time, and the watch is set like a chronograph, reset to the exact time, like the watch at a certain moment. But in this piece, what is really special is that I transmit a certain amount of values to the calendar, and this works immediately at the moment you put the watch in, and this has never been built before and not after until now.
Absolutely, and we're talking 1998 when the word smartwatches was not even anything. It didn't exist, and already this was, of course, you were playing with the memory, the mechanical memory of a watch, and you were taking horology to the next level. How? So my question is, Andreas, how did you manage to start so bold with such a massive project? And does it feel like in the next 25 years, did you feel like you were competing with that first masterpiece all the time to try to do better?
I like to create objects, to create watches, mechanisms. I like to create. That's important. It doesn't need always to be a super complication. It can be just an improvement or an interesting mechanism. Sure, the advantage was with the Tisch calendar that at that time I had plenty of time because I had only to work. So I worked day and night, and I created.
Yeah, we have a question from Ahmad, and I interrupt you because he's on this very point that you're making. How long did it take to produce? We're talking in the 90s.
Hours-wise, it was about 3,000 hours.
3,000 hours, yeah.
Hours, yeah. Sure, I had some help, especially making the case of the calendar. It was Enrico Santoni, a good goldsmith who worked with me, and another friend who did the stone carving, because outside there's some lapis lazuli, and but the most of the work was done by myself. So after the presentation in Basel, even I worked still on the piece because inside it wasn't finished, aesthetically finished. So all the spotting, beveling, and so on was done after Basel World. So from the first idea to the final piece, it took perhaps 3 years, but the last of the 3 years was the most important. So it was full time. You can't do this just as a side job. You have to do it full time.
Absolutely, absolutely. It is, for me, looking at this in retrospective, and I imagine if there were social medias in those days, you know, what would have been the coverage on a piece like this? Because you were anticipating the times. You were trying to give memory to a mechanical device, which is something that beforehand had been done only for automatons, no? And of course, you know, taking inspiration from the Breguet Sympathique as well, but a massive endeavor. So did you feel like that mechanics needed a soul, so needed a memory? How did the idea start, if I can ask?
The idea was really, I wanted to prove that mechanical solutions can be as clever as an electronic solution. It was the same concept as philosophy with the Zwei, with the pocket watch, and later the wristwatch, which switched indication, really to show that it's even possible to do solutions which only exists in electronics can be solved mechanically. This was kind of a challenge, but also a proof to be done.
Absolutely, and because Baselworld maybe in those days was more of a, how can I say, a window to the professionals of the industry, you immediately gain a reputation as the watchmaker that could do extraordinary things in those days. And from this, a lot of, you know, a few collaborations started to happen then later on in your career with other brands. And, you know, to the point that now you are known obviously as engineer for the brands and watchmakers for the few, because you reserve a few pieces of your production every year to your own customers. But you still collaborate with a number of brands that require your mechanical creativity and genius. So at this point in time, Andreas, do you feel more like the engineer for the brands or the watchmaker for the few?
It's a mix. Like I have my company Urteil, which is making watch parts for other brands. I need also to feed them. So I have to engineer watches for other brands to give work to my team. And on the other hand, I need my team and my machines and the workshop to make the complex pieces I need for my watches. So it's a mix. Sure. At the beginning, I started just making my watches, but I bought machines, I installed machines, I built machines to be able to make my parts, but then I need people to make the parts because I can't do everything at the time. So and then sure, my watch is like I make only a few, and I don't want to make more. I need to feed the workshop with something else, so we work for other brands. But the brands don't want just to make a simple part. They want to have creations of complicated watches, of simple watches, but they want not only the part, they want to have a part of my genius in their watches. So I give a hint and I create for them. So
Yeah.
it's there are seasons which I'm making more on my watches. There are seasons I'm creating more on watches for different brands.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's about this.
On
But
the
the most I like is making my own watches.
Okay, that's really interesting because also there are some projects you were open about. You talked about, of course, everyone knows you were involved with the conception of the perpetual calendar for Moser, which is one of the
Mhm.
most clever perpetual calendars out there. Absolutely, one of my favorite pieces as well. The collaboration with Kari Voutilainen on the Maître du Temps chapter 3, for example, or the Maurice Lacroix, Le Chronographe as well. Because you said, yeah, engineer for the brands. I needed to obviously make my assets worthwhile in terms of what you invest in your stuff, in your machines, and time. But you are asked for these very, very strongly complex mechanical endeavors. Is there something you is there something that helps you as well in being involved with these creative projects and collaborations? Uh, have these changed your approach to watchmaking, or do you always find yourself more giving rather than getting back?
It's in balance, I would say.
Yeah,
Um, the other advantage creating products for brands is that it makes my work better known in a certain way, and I can reach more customers, which are not perhaps customers for my watches, but there are customers who like to have something I have created. So um, it's interesting work anyway. Sure, my own watches, what is so unique is that they are not only created on the computer by myself, they are machined by my team, but the finishing and the assembly and finalizing the watches is all done by my own. So this
yeah,
limits the quantities, not not a desire to limit the quantity, but I want to make them all myself. So um, that's what's about the Andreas Strehler watches. For the other brands, we can produce for larger quantities, for larger audience, and but these are just, it's not just, but they are created on the design, on the technical design by my own, but assembled by other watchmakers.
so the inner value of every Andreas Strehler is related to the amount of work that actually the master watchmaker puts into the watch, and then obviously the complexity of the mechanics and the beautiful finishing, assembling and decorating. So
Yes.
it's fair to say that when you are obviously your price positioning is slightly above 100,000 Swiss francs for the most of your production, but the inner value of every timepiece is very, very close to that actual to that figure. No, that's the
Yes.
beauty. In times when for a Patek Philippe 5711 at the moment, you need 100,000 Swiss francs as well, and the actual inner value of the product is probably 5,000 because of the price point being a 2025. So it's an interesting consideration, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. It's um, my pieces are only a few, um, and I don't hesitate to do limits on my creations. I don't
Yeah.
say, okay, like I make only a few, I do a compromise, I take a part from there, or I take what I have. No, I create it like it should be. A good example is when you take the Papillon d'Or,
Yeah.
which is kind of an upside down movement. So the movement is on dial side, but the hands are coming through the movement. And yeah, this is the Papillon Classic, especially the Papillon.
That's a poor picture.
Yeah, this is the Tourbillon, which comes close to the Papillon d'Or. But what is special? Other brands, when they are making an upside down movement, yes, that it is an upside down movement, then they turn it over, for sure, make a nice movement, but driving the hands, they put extra gears, about 5 gears just, and they find a way to put a hole through to transmit the axis, to put the hands back on the back side and reversing the sense of rotation, because the movement would turn backwards if you don't. Yeah. But I prevent to make extra parts to reverse the gear, to retransmit the gear. I reverse the whole movement. So I don't need more parts than the normal way round, but I reverse everything. I reverse the mainspring, the winding gears, the sliding pinion, the escapement, everything is reversed just to make it upside down. So I need to make more parts finally than somebody else. So it's not economically, it's perhaps not the best solution, but technically it's the best because there are no extra parts. It is like it is. It's what it needs. No way to go around. I always find the pure solution.
Very good. So it's a very pure approach that of course requires time, dedication, investment. Have you ever thought, because I mean, what is staggering within your production, you never made compromises. So the first steel watch, I remember you showing me the Time Shadow 3 years ago in London. That was the first steel watch, but still very, very much bearing all the complexity of an Andreas Strehler movement. In a time like now, where all sorts of collaborations are popping up, I don't know if you've seen recently Vienney Alter with Louis Erard, for example, or Hajime Asaoka, of course, with Seiko, and these new ways of creating affordable timepieces just for people, middle-class people, to have a glimpse of the art of watchmaking. And I mention Asaoka and Vienney Alter because they are fellow AHCI watchmakers. Do you believe in this form of spreading the message, by creating collaborations that are fun? Of course, you won't be able to get an Asaoka watch, but people feel that they are getting an Asaoka watch when they buy a Corona watch. So what's your take, and will we ever see your name, in such a collaboration?
Andreas Strehler, my name, is a limited brand, and I don't want to spread it. I want just to have it for my watches, and I even don't want that one day where I will stop making the watches. I don't want that they will be produced further. So it's me, it's my creation. It's like a piece of art. As long the artist exists, he makes what he creates, but as long he stops making something, it stops. And that's about the same. I don't want to make, let's say, prints of my watches. I want that pieces signed with my name or made by myself. Sure, in collaborations I'm doing with other brands, I'm doing a lot of creations for independents. They can mention that it's made by my workshop, Urteil, but they are not watches made by Andreas Strehler, so they have no right to be signed as an Andreas Strehler watch. There I'm a bit different than my colleagues, but there's also the point that these independent brands, they should create their own reputation and not a reputation based on another artist. So each artist should be at his own. He should keep his own fame and not sharing the fame. I'm not really a fan of it.
Yeah. So, and of course, you're not a brand, as you just specified now. Now, you're obviously a contemporary watchmaking, an artist of the 21st century. How do you see things, you know, for a collector that acquires today one of your beautiful timepieces and he passes on to his son, and then his son will pass it on to his son for another 150 years? Do you build all your watches with a vision of what's going to happen in 200, 300, 400 years, where these pieces of art will be the symbol of a time that we're living now, where independent watchmaking is living a big renaissance, and you are a big part of it. So mechanically, aesthetically, do you think about the future of the timepieces as well?
Absolutely, absolutely. That's one of my core ideas. When you take an old watch, it can be a Breguet or another famous watch from a watchmaker, then normally they are built to be repaired. So you can disassemble it, cleaning it, reassemble it, and it works. If you take a modern timepiece with an ETA movement after wearing 5 to 10 years, you have to replace a couple of wheels and levers and so on. Sure, they are still available, that's not the problem, but you each time lose the original content. So my approach is really not to make the parts too tiny, too fragile, too thin. I want to make them that they don't wear during with the time. If they are maintained by a good watchmaker, they can be repaired easily. That's
Yeah, I lost your sound for a second, but can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I think my headphones they don't work anymore.
Okay, but we can hear you, so it's okay. So everyone, if you're enjoying this chat, feel free to pass your questions to Andreas. It doesn't happen very often that Andreas, being quite a reserved gentleman, is out there available for a chat like this. So I feel very fortunate, and please feel free to send your questions across if you have any. From the Irish Watch Guy, I love those Maître du Temps so much. What a shame the brand has not survived. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, that's really sure. I'm still proud of my creations, even if they are not made under my name. In the case of Maître du Temps, I even do repair for my customers for every creations I made in my workshop, even for other brands like the Opus 7. I already had customers who sent them to me for repair, and I do the service really as it should. That's
the
part of the work as a watchmaker.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, David, thank you very much. We talked about the Teach calendar, and it was a very nice conversation we just had. Yeah, so Andreas, from the collector's perspective, you know, at the limited edition, we always try to think with the eyes of a collector. When making the decision to invest on a famous brand or on a niche independent watchmaker, there is always this little doubt in the back of their mind. Yeah, but what's going to happen in 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years? Because a brand gives the impression of being more, obviously, consistent and timeless in the presence that they will have in the future if they're part of a big group like Richmond, like Swatch, or you name it. But am I right to say that there is an understanding with all the independent watchmakers that if you can do something for a collector that is stumbled on a brand that has disappeared, you know, watchmakers will genuinely try to do it for the love of the fact that they believe a beautiful timepiece should be, should be taken care for centuries. It's a bit the George Daniels philosophy of that you just mentioned of, a beautiful timepiece should be easy to repair from now to the next centuries.
I think a good made watch is always repairable. Like I said, antique watches, good antique watches are repairable still today, and the original watchmakers are nowhere. Even if you have a 200-year-old Breguet, even the Breguet company repairs them, sure, but they are not the watchmakers who made them.
Yeah.
So it comes to the same. If you would take one of my watches and you will find in 50 years another, let's say Asaoka, Voutilainen or whoever, he would be able to repair it. It's not mysterious. It's not like in the electronics where once the circuit is burned, you can't replace it. On watches, you have always the original parts in there. And even if a bad watchmaker goes to break something, and a good watchmaker can replace it just by taking the original sample and making it. So
is what Jean-Claude Biver will say: when you buy a mechanical timepiece, you buy eternity. You don't buy the present. You buy something that is forever.
Yes, absolutely. Mechanical timepieces, good mechanical timepieces from independent watchmakers, for really creators, they are built to stay forever. I'm a bit less optimistic when it comes to big series productions with high-tech materials which can't be replaced without a high-tech machine. There I'm a bit more skeptical. Sure, they can.
For example? For example,
silicon parts.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of. The biggest danger of a watch is a bad watchmaker. And the best future of a watch is a good watchmaker. So it all depends on watchmakers. But if an antique piece or a watch of today in the future is worn by a bad watchmaker, you take a traditional hairspring. When it's bent, a good watchmaker can readjust it and it works. But when a watchmaker goes to break a silicon hairspring, even the best watchmaker can't replace it. He can't make a hairspring, and this is not built for the future. That's built for.
Which is why you went on solutions like, for example, the remontoir d'égalité instead of high-tech solutions like you are mentioning. It's very interesting. Sorry, you were saying something more.
No, it's that's right. I like to make something which is repairable by a good skilled watchmakers. So somebody asked the question if I'm working alone on my watches. Yes.
Yeah, so that's watching my wrist. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm finishing the watches myself, so most of the barreling, the assembly anyway, the adjusting, casing up, everything. So this is what I'm doing. So the traditional watchmaker's work is done by myself. Making the parts is mostly done by my team, because I couldn't make so many different watches if I would do one by one everything by my own when I'm making parts. But assembly and finishing is done by my own.
Very good. The other question is about, obviously, this little movement here that you may recognize, I think.
Yes, I remember.
Obviously from the Opus 7. And the question is, was the Opus 7 born before the butterfly bridge or the other way around?
It was a mix. I created basically the movement of the Papillon Classic first. I did the creation as a concept about in 2002, I think, and it was just laying around on my computer. The concept was done, And when I met Hamdi Shatti, at that time director of Harry Winston, he asked me, what would you do if you do an opus? And I showed him first the Zwei, the switching indication, and he was fascinated, but the watch was so understatement that he said, listen, I can't do this for Harry Winston. It's too simple looking.
Too conservative.
Yeah. And then I showed him, I said, listen, I have another concept, which was the Papillon Classic. It haven't had a name, Papillon, but it was already the butterfly shape and everything. And he said, that's the design I want. Make me both together. And for me, at first it was really something which is not possible, because one is understatement and the other one is show off. So
yeah.
You mix them. And finally, the final product was the Opus 7. But then, like I launched the Opus 7, I decided to launch the Papillon Classic anyway. And so I launched it a year after the Opus 7. So it was in the public a year later, so everybody thinks it's a simplification of the Opus 7, but it's a reverse. The Opus 7 is a complication of the other one. So
yeah. Do you think now you are recognized? Your signature is the Papillon bridges, or do you feel you are known for other features? And also, what would you like to be recognized for?
The butterfly is my signature, sure. So there is always, like most of my movements has a symmetry. They have the butterfly somewhere. So this is the signature of Andreas Strehler watches. Even on the tourbillon, you can see the butterfly no longer as the bridge, but as the space between the bridges. Yeah. And this is one of the, let's say, secret signatures on my watches. It's the cushion-shaped case, which is also very special. Or this case here with a Damascene steel. I used Damascene steel on my first watch, which was on the Tisch calendar, and I made this unique watch for a collector, as a wristwatch. What is special on my watches is really the quality, the pureness, and the technical solution. I see my watches as living organisms. They are not just driving motors for hands. The movement is the story. The hands is just the
tool.
Just the function. And even the Papillon Classic didn't have hands, so it's.
You prompt a question from me, Andreas. You know how we say that, independent watchmaking and the work of contemporary master watchmakers like yourself, it is irrelevant that the watch is actually giving the time. And if you want a super accurate watch to read the time, you just have to go and find, besides the atomic clocks, but you can find any digital device. But actually, your journey tells the opposite, because you've been always obsessed with accuracy. You are the holder of some incredible records, like, for example, the most precise moon indication worldwide, and you have a Guinness World of Records for that. So you are one of those master watchmakers, and correct me if I'm wrong, that are still thinking that incredible watchmaking should also be about level of accuracy and reading the time, using watches to actually read the time. Am I assuming here, or do you find this somehow correct?
Reading the time is important. Sure, when I want to show a movement, I would like just to build as a kinetic art, but at the end it should have a time indication. Without time indication, it's not a watch. Yeah.
In terms of the accuracy,
wise,
that's been big for you.
There are 2 points to tell about this.
Yeah.
I made first the Perpetual Moon, which was just a Sotwell, so a constant force wristwatch with hours, minutes, and seconds, and a moon phase indication with a precision of 1 day in 2 million years. Then came across a customer and said, "That's cool, but how can I see it that it's precise? Do I need to wait 2 million years to know it's precise?"
That's a good point.
That's a good question. And so I created the Lune Exact, the vernier scale indication for the moon. So there you have the possibility not only to read about a day of the moon calendar, you can read with a precision up to 3 hours since last new moon. And this is also a new indication nobody did before. It was really a useful indication. And this shows that I'm not fear to show the precision. The other thing was the tourbillon. The tourbillon, it was for me also a kind of challenge. Before I never made a tourbillon under my own brand.
Transaction tourbillon.
And transaxial remontoir d'égalité underneath the tourbillon.
Yeah.
I wanted just to do a pure challenge, a nice watch, elegant, and combining all the best I know. And I wanted to make it elegant anyway. And then I had a customer who wanted to know, is it really precise? And so we submitted it to the Observatoire de Besançon. So we made an official chronometer certificate, and we can say it's still precise.
Yeah.
It was highly precise, but yeah.
Yeah. So in terms of, there are things you can improve. So accuracy, a special function like a tourbillon, for example. And there are things that you can invent. Yeah, so that, we are partners with the brand HYT. HYT, they're very proud of inventing the fluid indication of time, which is something that didn't exist before. So it's a fair point to say, we didn't want to do another more accurate tourbillon. We wanted to invent something completely crazy. So you have achieved the achievable, I think, in terms of improving the performance of classic functions. I could mention the remontoir d'égalité, the Lune Exact you just mentioned, the micro differential gear, of course, integrated as well to your movements, and not to mention the mechanical memory that you developed with the Tisch calendar. So, in your mind, do you have also for the future, at any time of your future, a crazy idea of reinventing the time, reinventing something, or are you more one for trying to improve the existence to the very, very maximum? I don't know if it's clear, my question.
Yeah, no, I'm not searching more and more to improve. Then you would never end. You have to know what you want to achieve, and I want to have other challenges. I want to create something else. Basically, like you said, a fluid indication or other indications, they are very attractive to create watches for collectors. Sometimes it doesn't need to be such complex. A collector can even love just a different hand setting mechanism or different winding or something like this can be already something collectible without being a super complex watch. I like to prove that it's possible to create other approaches in watchmaking. I have many ideas, just to go a different way. People are thinking, he is the man who made the most precise moon. Does he go now to make a 10 million years watch or whatever? No, I'm not interested. I think 2 million is enough. I do something else. Sure, I produce still the watches. I don't stop making my watches, but I don't want to replace them by another challenge. I want to create something more. It doesn't make sense to make the watch to replace the other one. Then it would be it's not worth to create something when you replace it. You have to create. Creation needs to be there, and
Absolutely. And also another important point when we talk about the watches being made by yourself personally, one big switch that is happening with independent watchmaking, I mean for the general public, because you know this for a long time, since when the AHCI was founded, the contribution of foreign watchmakers was very important. So it was never just about the Swiss made. When Calabrese and Andersen got together and started the AHCI, then the doors have been open for, watchmakers coming from all over the world. So we are in a situation now where independent watchmaking is a very much, it's a crossover of different influences coming from all over the world. So what does Swiss made means to you now and should mean for people buying watches today? If you're a collector today, should you take any notice of the Swiss made? Because we all know that you can have a fantastic watch timepiece from Germany, from Japan, from Russia, from Holland, from Germany, from the US. What's your approach on that?
So my watches are Swiss made because I make them here. I'm not somewhere else. I make them here, and I make them myself. If I would be in another country, it wouldn't be a Swiss made. So Swiss made, okay, it's a good sign of for large production pieces, but when it comes to independent watches, they don't need to be Swiss. Another example is I'm a Swiss watchmaker. In Switzerland, I'm even not very well known because everybody thinks, Switzerland watchmakers, that's normal. Even complicated watches, that's normal stuff. If I would be 20 kilometers away from here, just above the German border or Austrian border, I would be much more unique than being in Switzerland. So
I see your point.
To be a creative watchmaker outside of Switzerland, in Ireland, wherever. It's good watchmakers can be everywhere.
Absolutely. Which is why maybe the likes of John McGonigal moved back to Ireland. You just made me think to establish his new project, which is Elan, which is very, very interesting. It was so good to talk to you, Andreas. Thank you so much for your time. This has been really, really, really interesting. Do you also feel that independent watchmaking is really saving the boat for watchmaking in general? When we leave crises like we are seeing now, all the big brands, the mainstream brands, they crash against the wall because of the policy of producing to fill up retailers around the world rather than creating pieces of art that have to entice collectors that would want to buy, which is a completely different perspective. So do you feel independent watchmaking is once again saving the boat? Oh, we lost Andreas there. Something happened with the connection. Okay, let us try again.
Brands copies the work of independent watchmakers.
Sorry, Andreas, we lost you. So if you can repeat your question, we lost.
Big brands are copying the work of independent watchmakers for sure. They even try to industrialize what they call it artwork. So because they feel there could be a market for them and they could fill it with a big quantity, but creation pieces of art are never a question of quantity, they are a question of quality, of creativity. And sure, there are some watches from large brands which could be creative, but most are just made to make profit and not made to make something fantastic. And
yeah, so that's
I have just to tell you, my father is collecting watches. Basically, he's collecting antique watches, pocket watches. And on pocket watches, there are not many brands, and the brands are not interesting. There you have to see what the watch contains, what it has as a genius indication or function. You have to judge on the product itself. It's not the name who makes the product, it's the content. And the same it comes to the independent watchmakers. The content counts, not the name, basically. A good creation should push the product forward.
very, very clear. Very clear. Yeah, as you know, my experience is from the corporate side. So I worked for big groups and big and smaller brands, and it is refreshing to see that there is this interest renewed to independent watchmaking, because in the end, it is the work of individuals like yourself that are expressing something that goes beyond just selling watches. If you wanted to sell watches, you could just make a watch at 10,000 Swiss francs, call it Andreas Strehler, and you will sell loads. But that's not. You are on a mission, and your mission is not that to sell, but it's to express yourself. And and this is to me a saver for the world of watchmaking in general. So thank you very much, Andreas, once again. I know this conversation was long overdue, and I'm happy we had it today, and I hope to have you one day soon when you feel like maybe presenting anything new. Please feel free to come live with us and share.
Okay. It was a pleasure. It was really fun. Thanks.
Thank you, Andreas. You take care, and I'll see you very soon. All the best.
Bye.
Bye-bye.